Welcome back to more movie plots. Spoilers ahead.
Let's go blow this guy.
Away!
Whatever.
Los Angeles has become a wasteland of crime where the street gangs now hold more power than the police. LA's supercop John Spartan is being sent in to arrest the most powerful leader of them all, having set up the largest territory for his gang inside a dilapidated building. Word is that the criminal has kidnapped 30 passengers, so John bungee jumps from a helicopter onto the roof of the headquarters to rescue the hostages. He fights his way through the structure, killing all 8 gang members in the process, while the leader spots him on the cameras and uses a dagger to puncture nearby barrels of gasoline. Spartan reaches the head honcho Simon Phoenix, who brandishes a blowtorch, catching him by surprise, having preemptively soaked the floor. He laughs at him for not being able to shoot him and lights a smoke with the blowtorch, then flicks it toward him, igniting the floor. But John avoids the flames and tackles Simon, and the two fight briefly until Spartan gets the better of him and knocks him out, then throws him over his shoulder and runs out as barrels of C4 ignite. John Spartan has a reputation for destroying property and a long history of being reprimanded by his captain, with this being no exception. John has earned the nickname the Demolition Man, even though it was Phoenix who deliberately rigged the place to explode. Spartan tells his chief that a thermal scan of the building found no hostages, but a fire chief tells them that they've found 30 dead bodies in the rubble. Simon has set John up and tells the captain that he knew the hostages were in there and blew the building up anyway. Due to this, John is charged with manslaughter of 30 innocent civilians and sentenced to 70 years in cryogenic prison, being frozen into a giant block and left in the freezer alongside his nemesis Simon Phoenix. 36 years later, and Los Angeles has changed a considerable amount. Lenina Huxley FaceTimes with the prison warden William Smithers while on her way to work. The prison is still in operation all these years later, and the San Angeles Police Department hasn't dealt with a violent crime in over 16 years after becoming a community of peace, but breeding soft officers like Huxley and Irwin. When Huxley is told of a simple spray paint incident earlier, she calls it brutal, but is told to keep a lid on it by Chief Earl, who also credits her obsession with the 20th century as a point of disruption to her work. Huxley's co-worker Alfredo Garcia reckons he is very happy with his life, but Lenina wants some action. Over at the action, Phoenix finds himself unfrozen for a parole hearing but is told by Smithers that they abolished that way of doing things decades ago. When given a chance to speak, Phoenix says out loud the password to unlock his shackles and attacks the guards. Not having a clue how he knew the phrase, he proceeds to kill them all, then tears Smithers' eye out with a pen to get past the retinal scanners. Back at the SAPD's HQ, the police are alerted by their computer to a code 187. With none of them recognizing the code, the computer calls it a murder-death-kill, the first one they've had in the past 23 years. The officers watch on horrified as Smithers takes his last breath on camera. Trying to look up the last person paroled, Huxley is interrupted by Zachary Lamb, who recognizes it as the handiwork of Simon Phoenix, having dealt with him before in the past. Huxley works quickly to locate him since he has stolen the warden's car, and finds him at a control kiosk where Phoenix discovers that he has been given the ability to hack into any computer in the city. The police celebrate that they've found the fugitive and send 6 officers to arrest Phoenix, who is trying to locate a gun and getting tickets every time he cusses. The inexperienced officers are no match for him as he defeats each one of them with ease, noticing even more skills such as increased strength and speed.
We're not trained to handle this kind of violence.
After they are all beaten, he uses an electrified police club to detonate the battery in one of the cruisers and escapes. The city is headed by a seemingly benevolent leader named Raymond Cocteau, who is responsible for the peaceful society that LA has become, and whose primary focus is ridding the city of the underground movement beginning to rise up. Shocked at the level of violence, Chief Earl warns Raymond that the police aren't trained to handle these kind of confrontations, but patronizing Peter gives him his utmost confidence. With no other option, Zachary brings up John Spartan as the man for the job, and with hesitation from the police chief, Spartan is thawed out from his hibernation to be reinstated to the police force. After a lengthy thawing process, Huxley tells John that his wife was killed in the Big One of 2010, where all of LA merged into one mega city following an earthquake that devastated most of Southern California, and that his daughter's whereabouts are unknown. When John asks for a cigarette, he's told all vices from the past are illegal because they are unhealthy, including caffeine, contact sports, meat, chocolate, and anything spicy. John attempts to use the toilet but warns them that they are out of toilet paper, finding out that they have moved beyond paper and now use 3 seashells. He sees Lamb for the first time in nearly 40 years, and the officers watch the first masculine conversation they have ever seen, before John swears a few times to get ticketed, then uses them to wipe his ass. Before being sent out, Spartan is told that he's had a microchip implanted in his hand to track his location, just like every other officer. He then laughs at the police chief's theories on Phoenix and tells him that his first order of business will be to find a gun. When the chief tells him that the only guns left in the city limits are in a museum, that's where they go. John learns quickly that he doesn't know how to drive a modern vehicle, and is miserable when he hears that commercials are all that's now listened to on the radio.
Somebody put me back in the fridge.
In the museum, Phoenix goes to the Hall of Violence and tests out the durability of the exhibit's glass, eventually breaking open a display case and stockpiling several weapons, including a laser rifle from after his time. The exhibit then seals itself, temporarily trapping Simon inside as Spartan arrives. After testing out his new glow rod, John tells Huxley and Alfredo to wait for him outside. He finds Phoenix and the two begin a back and forth gunfight while Simon waits for the laser rifle to charge. After a vicious shootout spanning 2 levels of the museum, they begin to fight hand to hand. John temporarily subdues Phoenix with the taser, but Simon springs back up with the laser rifle charged, shooting a few rounds off towards John and escaping through the museum's roof. Simon runs directly into Raymond on his way out and tries to shoot him, but realizes he is unable to pull the trigger due to a mental block. Raymond tells him that he is the one who released him, wanting him to hunt down the head of an underground rebel movement that's been terrorizing the city. Spartan catches up with Phoenix yet again, but he escapes, yet again. Raymond pretends to thank Spartan for saving his life, and when hearing from the police chief that they thawed out the Demolition Man to deal with Simon, he invites John and Huxley to join him for dinner at Taco Bell.
You really licked his ass.
Kicked his ass.
International versions of the film are dubbed with Pizza Hut.
To Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut?
Not realize that Pizza Hut.
Dance in a Pizza Hut?
Which is then later shown in some reshot rebrandings, as well as some CGI cover-ups. Though these are clearly mini Michelin tacos. On the way to dinner, Huxley says that all restaurants are Taco Bells after an event called the Franchise Wars, and that Schwarzenegger became president in Sly's absence.
No way.
Raymond's dinner guests are treated to John's vulgar language, and he makes mention of the decades-long nightmare he had of people burning in a building. Raymond dismisses the notion that John was actually conscious during his incarceration, but John says that he remembers his wife banging her fist against his ice block. Some shady-looking people show up outside the restaurant and John goes after them, saying that he has a hunch. Just then the underground movement known as the Scraps burst forth from the sewers, being led by the man Simon was woken to kill, Edgar Friendly, and they begin to attack the restaurant. John easily takes several of them down as they have never faced resistance before, then traps the majority of the group beneath a tent. But he eventually stops when he notices one of them drop a container of food. Huxley is overexcited and praises Spartan for his ability in kicking the crap out of some scraps, but Spartan scolds Raymond, saying that violence is never a good thing when the starving people were just trying to find something to eat. When leaving dinner, Huxley suggests using the police computers to locate his daughter, but John refuses, thinking that he is too much of a primitive for her to want to meet him. Huxley takes John back to her apartment, saying that the violence has her aroused, and politely asks if John will have what she calls sex with her.
Oh yeah.
He obviously agrees, but she places a helmet on his head and sits opposite him. Then a machine begins to stimulate their brains together, but it's too strange for John and he breaks the connection, asking to just do it the old-fashioned way. Huxley is grossed out and explains that fluid exchange was a cause for the downfall of humanity and is now illegal, with everyone going to a lab to now have babies. John tries to break the law, but Huxley kicks him out of her apartment. John watches a recording from the museum showing that Simon had plenty of time to kill Raymond but didn't, festering a suspicion inside him. He spends the night knitting a sweater and gives it to Huxley in the morning as an apology. During their incarceration, prisoners are reconditioned with new skills given to them, such as knitting for Spartan. Huxley looks up what Simon was given to find he has been reconditioned to be even more of a hardened killer with knowledge on modern computers. Spartan has Huxley take him to Raymond's office where he confronts him directly, but Raymond just calls John a relic from the past and asks Huxley to arrest him, so John fires a round off and leaves by himself. The night before, Simon is shown to have a meeting with Raymond about eliminating Edgar and all the other scraps. Phoenix demanded that his fellow gang members be released from cryo to assist him, though for them not to be enhanced as he was and to just remain docile and loyal. He then tells the freshly thawed cryocons that they have to kill Edgar and then the city will be theirs. With Huxley refusing to take Spartan back to cryo-freezing, she escorts him with Alfredo beneath the city. John figures that the reason why the manhunt failed to find Phoenix is because he was hiding in the one place they refused to go. The three discover an entire civilization living beneath them, where John is finally able to have his first burger and beer, paying for it with Huxley's watch and being told that it is rat meat. They find a 1970s Oldsmobile 442 owned by Edgar, who thinks they are here for him and tells them that it's not happening. He says that he's not a fan of the dictatorship laid out by Raymond and would rather live his life in poverty but still remain free. The police tell him about Raymond wanting him dead and thawing out Simon to hunt him down, when Phoenix shows up with his gang and another shootout ensues. Edgar splits Phoenix up from his boys when he shoots out the platform beneath him, and Alfredo tries to arrest him but is knocked unconscious as Simon escapes to the surface. He steals a squad car while Huxley and Spartan use an elevator to the surface to pursue after him with Edgar's Oldsmobile. With the police car's tires auto-inflating when popped, Spartan does his hero cop thing and leaps onto the roof of the vehicle. Phoenix drags John down and attempts to push him into the ground at high speed, while telling him that he'd already killed the bus passengers before John had ever showed up that night. But John manages to throw Phoenix from the car as it crashes into the front of the police department, encasing Spartan in a cannoli of protective foam. Phoenix escapes again, and Spartan is grilled by the police chief, as Edgar and the Scraps arrive now with Alfredo in their ranks. They give John weapons which they say is usually used for grocery shopping and go after Phoenix. At Raymond's office, Phoenix, still unable to pull the trigger on his rescuer, compares him to an evil Mr. Rogers and gives his gun to one of his prisoner horde to do the deed, then throws his body on the fire. But associate Bob is given amnesty as he could provide to be useful later on. Spartan and Huxley arrive and fight their way through the prisoners, where Lenina shows her first signs of violence, having learned how to kick from watching Jackie Chan films. They then see from the computer that Phoenix has gained access to the cryo prison and plans to thaw out all the remaining criminals, many of whom were incarcerated by John Spartan himself. So John knocks Huxley out to keep her safe while he goes to the cryo prison to get demolishing. Bobby is in the final stages of thawing out all the prisoners, so Simon kills all the technicians, having no further need for them. Spartan loses his element of surprise when he bumps a computer and the two exchange gunfire, until eventually Simon uses a crane to capture John. After a few bad puns and a few pot shots taken at John, a bullet hits a cryo tube, freezing an arm and allowing John to punch his way out of the machine. Simon uses a laser designed for cutting the blocks of ice on John, but it quickly runs out, and the two continue in hand-to-hand once again. After a vicious fight, Spartan lies defeated with Simon standing over him. As the place begins to melt around them, John uses a device made to instantly freeze criminals when they are submerged in water, freezing the entire room and Phoenix from the ground up. John holds onto what's left of the crane to avoid the floor, then kicks Phoenix's frozen head off, which bounces then shatters. He drops from the crane as the freezing reaches his hands and runs out of the cryo prison, as it explodes behind the Demolition Man. Chief Earl wonders how they will continue their way of life with their benevolent leader having been turned into a crackling log, but Spartan suggests that they find a way of living in peace with Edgar, who himself ends up with Bob as his new associate. Huxley sarcastically thanks the hero for knocking her out, and the two transfer some fluid, heading home to start the first above-ground physical relationship in decades, and to learn how the three seashells work. And the movie ends.
You can take this job, and you can shovel it.
Close enough.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.